Hey, what's happening out there? This is Halftime Prep Talk. And we're coming at you from the Daily Independent Conference Room. Zach Clemmy, Matthew Sparks, I'm Aaron Snyder. Unfortunately, Raceland volleyball coach Sarah Lynn couldn't be here today. We tried to make that happen, but we're gonna talk about Raceland volleyball here in just a little bit because they deserve some credit for what they've done over the past 3 seasons. It's been pretty amazing. So we'll get to that here in just a little bit. Check out the Chick-fil-A ticker at the bottom of your screen for upcoming playoff football games in the area, and also a recap of last week, which was the last week of the regular season. HTPT is brought to you by Fannin Automotive Family. Guys, let's talk volleyball. Raceland has been on a roll the past 3 seasons in the 16th region.
No question, 22-2 in the region this year. And the funny thing about it is that's their worst region record of any of those years. They lost 1 2 years ago, and they lost 0 last year. So that just speaks to how dominant that they've been. It looked a little bit shaky, suspect maybe toward the end of the regular season. Lost a big match at Ashland in the last match of the regular season, and they come out and win. They've won 15 of their 17 sets in the postseason. 15 of 17, and against a fairly difficult road. That's against Russell twice, swept Russell twice. A dangerous Greenup County team in the first round. They played Ashland again in the region semifinals. So that they've just been really on a roll the last 3 years, but more specifically the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and 30 wins each of the past 3 seasons. Been almost unprecedented. I think it's the first time that's happened in area volleyball.
Yeah.
It's rarely happened in any sport.
Yeah.
3 seasons in a row of 30 wins or more. And you look at what they've done this year specifically. They had to do that without Kimbria Williams, who graduated. And of course, Jason Clark was the coach, and he resigned before the season. Sarah Lynn comes in there, so new coach, new people that they have to depend on, especially on the front line. Matt, so who's kind of taken over that spot? The void that Kimbria Williams left, because what a talent that was. She went to Eastern Kentucky after last season. So how have they been able to fill that void?
Well, it's really amazing what they've done over the last 3 years, especially with all the change they've had this year. I think Emily Bryant has really stepped up. Maybe one of the top, probably the top player in the region. But Raceland's got so many other pieces. We've got a great front line: Abby Whaley, Sadie Barker, Savannah Mackey. They got great serve. They got great got girls that can serve, and they really play well as a team. I think that is the one quality that they have, and I think that loss to Ashland really set a fire under them here in the postseason. They've really been on a roll.
Yeah, I thought Ashland had a good team as well. I thought there were several good teams in the area. They had a chance to maybe upset them, if you want to call it an upset. I think you do after they are 2-time defending champs and now 3-time. So Morgan Large was a girl who came up big for them several times. She, of course, is a good setter, and she was on our show last year, So congratulations to them. Looking forward, Zach, you talked to Coach Lynn the other day about what they have coming up Friday in Louisville in the state tournament. They got Henderson County in the first round.
Very strong team from what we've been able to hear. One common opponent, and they're like 300 miles apart, so it's kind of remarkable that they have even one common opponent. Henderson County, of course, is down toward the toe of Kentucky, dead opposite end of the state from us. They both played Caldwell County. Caldwell is in that second region along with Henderson, and Henderson swept them 3 times, or beat them 3 times, I think. Caldwell took 1 set off of them in 3 matches, and Caldwell and Raceland played at the All-A-State tournament, and Caldwell beat Raceland. So you don't want to compare scores. That can be kind of dangerous, and different teams match up differently, but that kind of gives an indication of just how strong Henderson County is. So they would probably be favored against Raceland. Of course, they are a much bigger school, one of the top 10 schools enrollment-wise in the state of Kentucky, a very big school, and of course Raceland's a Class A school. But if Raceland shows up, and they've talked about this, Coach Lynn talked about this, they show up, they play their game, they do what they do, then they feel good about their chances to make it interesting for sure.
Okay, and also this weekend is state cross country. Russell's boys won the region last weekend, as did Elliott County boys. And on the girls' side, it was Mason County in Class 2A, and in Class A, it was who for the girls?
Morgan County.
With Kaylee Perry leading them. Sorry, I threw you a trivia question there.
We're ready.
Almost threw you
I
a
like
curve.
curveballs.
Yeah, Kaylee Perry led Morgan County again to a region championship, but there are several others too that qualify for the state cross country meet at Kentucky Horse Park. So keep an eye on that. We should have coverage of that this weekend as well. So other seasons wrapping up. The regular season for football wrapped up. From week 11, let's give out our game balls. All right, game balls for week 11, guys. It's we put a capper on the regular season, heading into the playoffs now. And on that last week, several guys stood out. I'm going to go with Ashland's Kirkland Brown. Kirkland Brown is a guy who hadn't had a whole lot of opportunities this year because, well, he plays behind Quentin Baker. And, you know, talking to Tony Love after the game, Ashland's coach, you know, about Kirkland's, you know, seizing his opportunity, he just said, you know, not very many guys are going to play ahead of Quentin Baker. And so that kind of is why he's had some limited chances in terms of statistics and things. But he had a chance this week, took advantage of it against Tate's Creek, had 205 yards on 26 carries, and just had an outstanding night. And so that gives Ashland a little bit more confidence and some opponents a little bit more to look at on film when they have, well, not just Quentin Baker, but they got Noah Roberts at fullback. They got Kirkland Brown. So 3 guys that you're going to have to account for when you're talking about Ashland's power running game. Matt.
Thank you. I had to go with
So polite today.
I know.
It's because of the tie.
The
right?
tie, yeah. The 3 guys in ties today.
Yeah, you got to put a tie on. It just makes you just more courteous.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Kane Snyder from Raceland. Kind of put the Rams on his back Friday night in a game I think they had to have, especially for the confidence and momentum heading into the playoffs. Lost to both their district games. They were kind of in a slide there. I think they needed that game against Rosal. Scored the winning touchdown in overtime to beat the Red Devils. Kind of dashed the Red Devils' hopes of a top seed in their district.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to give it to him.
All right. Whoa, nice.
Option pitch action.
Yeah.
One of the games that kind of flew under the radar this week was Boyd County and Tulsa. You know, there were a couple other games bigger. Raceland Russell obviously had district implications, district title implications for Russell and West Carter McGoffin as well. Boyd had nothing to play for other than pride. They'd been eliminated already from postseason contention. Tulsa comes in, though, and the kind of challenge they presented kind of tends to get you focused if you're still kind of mentally engaged like they are. Tulsa was 8-0 and ranked number 2 in the state of West Virginia in Class 2A. Came in and Boyd really took it to them there in the first half, and then Tulsa made its rally. They're a good team, a good second half team. Got within 2 points inside the final minute. Went for 2. Their stud running back Luke Presley and Austin Terry brought him down to keep Boyd County ahead, and then Boyd recovered the onside kick and was able to run the clock out. So we'll go with Austin Terry for our game ball. Junior linebacker gives Boyd a nice win for them. Mm-hmm. And they missed the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. We looked that up, but they get to end the season on a win, and frankly, that may be better for momentum than, you know, for the momentum of the program than going up to Northern Kentucky and you know, the challenge that some of those teams present that they've had to deal with the last few years. So,
Yeah, I'd have to second that.
good way for Boyd to end the season for sure.
Absolutely. All right, so some of them are not going to play anymore. You know, some of the seasons are over. Boyd County season's over. East Carter season's over. Lewis County season's over. And Morgan County season's over. But some of them continue, and that's most of them continue. And that's, you know, it's an exciting time, guys. I mean, week 1 of the playoffs, it's really tough sometimes to get all pumped up just because, you know, you see some lopsided games and some of the major teams in the state have to face lesser opponents. It's just the way the format is right now in the KHSAA. You know, so you have Johnson Central, you know, going up against a much lesser opponent. You have, you know, West Carter even this year, a number 1 seed. Yep. And, you know, just having a season of firsts. You know, it's been an unbelievable season for the Comets. Visiting there a few weeks ago on our HTPT road tour this year, we visited several different places, 10 different places in the area. And it's been a fun season. It's been a fun season on this show, and that was one of the best stops I think we've had. You know, we've had some good ones, but you know, talking to Kevin Brown and just seeing, you know, it's just such a newness and a new excitement, and it's you know, that new environment there that's been created of a winning one. It's just nice to see West Carter on a roll here. And in Class 3A District 5, they're the champions. Nobody can take that away from them. Now they have to do some business and get their first home playoff win and their first playoff win in period. So first home playoff game is what they host this Friday. How far can West Carter go?
Well, they have the potential, and we were talking about this earlier, because of the district that they're in, an odd-numbered district and an odd-numbered region, they have the potential, if they're able to get past some people, to host all the way to the state semifinals, which Olive Hill would probably just shut down over all the excitement. That would be the greatest thing that's ever happened there, certainly since Smoky Valley went out of business. It's just terrible news for everybody. But they have a chance to win probably 2 playoff games possibly. They'll go up against the winner of Lawrence Fleming, I believe, in the second round. And those 2 teams are very good, really. But I think either one of those teams against West could be interesting. Of course, West and Fleming played in the regular season, and that did not go well for Fleming. But they are looking. They don't want to look too far ahead, but a potential matchup possibly with either a Belfry or a Russell in the third round of the playoffs. And in Olive Hill, I mean, what a game that would be if they're able to get there and make that happen. So I think they have a good shot. They should be comfortable favorites in their first game, and a good shot maybe to win that second game. And then you're looking at maybe a Belfry coming into town, and what an atmosphere that would be in Olive Hill.
So no more coconut cream pie from Smoky Valley,
Oh,
but a sweet slice of pie from West Carter if they get a playoff victory.
Yeah, nice. We had to really send congrats out to West Carter.
We did.
And Coach Kevin Brown. Coach Brown has been at Olive Hill and West Carter a long time.
20 years.
Really invested in the program, and
Exactly.
it's really something they really wanted as a home playoff game. Now they can get several, depending on how they perform.
Yep.
I think we all think that they can win that first round game, and then it's hard to really guess games in that 3A Class 5 district. It's very dangerous for us because I have not had much luck this season. I don't know. I don't think anybody
None
had
of
much
us
luck.
have.
But you can see maybe Lawrence County slide into that second round game in Olive Hill. You got athletes all over the field in
What a
that
game that would be.
I mean, you might as well bring extra lead if you're keeping stats in that game because you going to see a lot of points, a lot of scoring, and then maybe you might see a Belfry come to Olive Hill too, and that would be a party in of itself.
Well, this might fall in line with what I'm going to ask next, Matt. We're going to go class by class, and I'll let you have 3A since that's what we're talking about right now. Take off with 3A there, and just give me, one or two. Give the fans one or two just potential matchups that could be really intriguing involving area teams in Class 3A.
Well, the West Carter and Lawrence County, I think, might be the most intriguing, maybe of the first 3 rounds, maybe until you get to the regional championship. I mean, like I said, a lot of scoring. Fans love to see a lot of scoring. I mean, 2 great quarterbacks on those teams, Grant Kaiser and Braden Brown, very athletic, great arms. We might see a Russell Belfry. I don't know if Red Devils have fond memories of Belfry, I'm sure. And always love to see them in the playoffs, I'm sure. So,
Of course, that was the state semifinal matchup last year.
Yes. Russell might go into the playoffs with a little chip on their shoulder. They lost that game to Raceland last week. They were hoping for a top seed. If they won that game with all the tiebreakers, so we're in ties. We're going to talk tiebreakers here. I think you're going to see a much better performance from them. They played Pike County Central in the first round. I think you're going to see a much. I'm sure they had a great practice this week. You'll see a much better performance. I think one impact play you might see for Russell, Spencer Cole could play a huge role. I mean, Nick Conley, I figure will have some great games. Jacob McKee from the quarterback spot. But Spencer Cole is important to that team because you can't concentrate on Nick Conley all the time because they have another talented running back in the backfield for us. I think he could play a huge role for their success going forward.
Impact player alert right there, Spencer Cole.
Yes.
We might have a few of those pop up throughout. Impact players who you may not have heard much from throughout the season. Quentin Baker and Cash Daniel and those guys kind of aside, not because we know they're going to perform.
Right.
But some guys that have kind of flown under the radar that are going to be impact players throughout the playoffs. Ding, ding, there's one that could possibly be one, Spencer Cole for Russell. And you mentioned Pike County Central. I talked to Coach T.J. Maynard of Russell the other day, and he was talking about Pike Central, how they like to spread it out, which who doesn't these days?
Right. Yes.
I mean, it seems more and more, they're going away from every level of football. They're going away from the power, I formation. I'm going to run right at you. You're going to get my best. I'm going to get your best if you're in the trenches. It's a little different now. People are liking to spread out, and they like to appeal to the fans a little bit more, appeal to the players. It's a little more exciting when the playbook's opened up. But you look at Class 4A. I'll take 4A here. And you look at a power running team who's kind of still going against the grain against the trend of going with the spread is Ashland. They were a power running football team. And they will pound it with Quentin Baker and Robertson Brown, as like I mentioned before. And they might throw Drew O'Brien in there as a tight end, or a Jay Lane, who's a physical receiver. It'll be interesting to see who gets some of the snaps under center. Is it going to be Tate Dowdy? Is it going to be Braxton Ratliff? Is it going to be both? I think it works out where both of them are in there. Tates Creek against Tates Creek the other night, Braxton Ratliff had a beautiful pass to Ryan Kumabong. I mean, I think both those guys do things well, and they could use both those guys. I'm not always going to say that, because most of the time I feel like it's best to stay with one guy as your quarterback. Yes. But in Ashland's case, I think they can go with two, and it worked out well for them. So as far as potential intriguing matchups, this is easy. Johnson Central Ashland. 7 the first time. I'm sorry, I had to go with the low-hanging fruit, as Zach would say, on that one. But in Paintsville in 3 weeks in the region final, Johnson Central Ashland is just going to be one of those games that goes down like the last, several of the last 10 have, as just another classic, in my opinion. I think it will. Johnson Central seems to have that propensity to win these one-point games and break Ashland's heart every other year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I will go ahead and give you an impact player from Johnson Central, and that's Gunnar Sloan. The fullback is not always the guy who gets the bulk of the yards. A lot of times I will go to Bryce Skaggs, Bryce Workman, and Connor Ratliff. But Gunnar Sloan is a tough guy who's like a Jerome Bettis, Mike Allstott type guy. If they get, inside the 5-yard line, just as he did against Ashland at Putnam, he's going to get in the end zone. So Ashland's going to have to find an answer for that, and the Tomcats defense is good enough to find an answer.
No question. That leaves me with Class A, and we have 3 pretty good Class A teams certainly in this area that I think all have a chance to win a game, if not a few games. There's a good chance that if Raceland goes up to Brussels this week and takes care of business, Paintsville should handle Bracken County without a tremendous amount of trouble. Then they'll play again in the second round of the playoffs. But I'm kind of looking on the other side of that. Paris and Fairview should be a pretty good game there in the second round. Paris has a bye because Phelps elected not to participate in the playoffs this year. So Paris is already slotted into that second round. And then Fairview's got a matchup with Nicholas County, which I think they should be able to take care of business, I think, there. And Nicholas is not a bad team with not a bad defense, as Bath County found out for sure last week. And Nicholas and Paris also kind of played a classic there in the regular season. But I think it's just a matter of Fairview's athleticism, depth is probably going to be a little bit too much, I would think, for Nicholas County. And they've Matt has a note about this in a story that's come out this week, but those are 2 old district rivals that played, maybe not, district opponents that played several times dating back to the 70s. So
I found out 34 times since 1975, and they just played in the district just as recently as last year. Fairview beat them by 20 last year, and no Alex Roy in that game last year.
Right.
So Alex Roy is now back in full force. I think Fairview could probably take care of it.
The good news is they don't have to go to Carlisle. Weird things happen in Carlisle.
That is true. So we've heard. But it mentioned impact guys, and everybody knows about Alex Roy, Antoine Washington. So Nicholas will likely dedicate much of its what it's able to do defensively to try to take some of those guys away. Then you're going to need, we've talked about how deep Fairview is in that receiving core. A lot of other guys, Dylan Romine, Mason McIntyre, the list goes on and on. Jonathan Ruggles out of the backfield. Those are a lot of guys that will have to pick up the slack if, in fact, Nicholas is able to take anything away from Washington, double teams, or possibly even more than that. Or if they play a deep zone, then you can run stuff underneath for some of those guys. A lot of possession receivers and slot guys for Fairview that will have a shot to put up some yards.
Yeah, we talk about impact players, too. I think, usually that's what it's come down to in the postseason, is to a player that you might not have heard of contributing, because, the Stars can't have great games every single week. The pressure mounts in the playoffs, and you can see some guys that don't. Not recognized or not too much attention in the regular season, come through in the postseason, and they can carry a team through.
Yeah, you mentioned to go off track a little bit, the guy that won the World Series for Kansas City, Christian Cologne. His first at bat of the postseason was the RBI in the 12th inning that put Kansas City ahead.
That just proves my point right there.
There you go. It'll be a guy. The guys that are going to do what they're going to do. But by the same token, other teams know, okay, well, we got to gear ourselves to try to stop that. So then it's going to fall to a guy that maybe is not as well known and is going to have certainly a shot to make something happen.
Okay, a couple of other items we want to hit on and elaborate on a little bit. In Class 4A, back to Class 4A real quick. Greenup County. Greenup County, as Zach reported in his story this week in the Daily Independent, it's a program that you would think would have a little bit more playoff wins than they've had. You really would. But they haven't. They've been few and far between. Actually, 1977 and 2007 were the only teams that won at least one playoff game in their history. The Musketeers are going on the road in Cynthiana against Harrison County. But can they become that third team to win a playoff game? In my opinion, yes, they can because of their defense. And, Harrison County is a team that they depend on Brock Jenkins, their quarterback, who is their leading rusher and leading passer, and Javon Williams is their leading receiver. And those two guys, if you can key in on them, I think you're going to have success. And Greenup County, if there is a defense that tackles better, maybe aside from Ashland and Johnson Central, okay, in the area, then I want to see them. Those three teams right there, it's that quote-unquote cliche 11 halves of the football.
Yeah, no question. And Chris Mullins kind of made a joke that I'm not sure whether it made it the story or not. People say championship caliber teams, what you need is a great defense and a great running game, and they've had that. So they've focused a little bit more for balance purposes and just kind of the natural progression of their personnel, their quarterback. They've thrown the ball a little bit more this year, and he kind of mentioned, there are some teams that they didn't think they could beat, just, running Ryan Bird down your throat 27 times a game. They probably don't beat Fleming, he says, without being able to throw the ball. They may not be competitive in some of their other games without being able to throw the ball, and you probably need to throw the ball in the postseason because if they're able to beat Harrison and then they have a Johnson Central in the second round, well, you got 10 guys in the box, you can't run against that. So you have to present a threat through the air, and they've really put some effort into kind of getting that squared away.
Impact player for Greenup County, you got one?
There's quite a few. Caden Warnick is a pretty good, very athletic on offense and on defense too. For that on that defense, we talked about offenses, like to spread out earlier, but we have really great defenses in this area, and of course they say defense win championships. I think defense will carry some of these teams further in the postseason. But Greenup County, is really excited, even with all the with the success that they haven't had in the postseason. They are very excited even to go on the road. Seems like they take it as a personal challenge, and are very excited heading into the playoffs to play that game and a possible matchup, as Zach has in his story, a possible matchup with Johnson Central
in the second round.
Yeah, they actually welcome that welcome another matchup with the Eagles.
Yeah.
So they're very excited.
And these streaks that are going on in the playoffs, these first round playoff streaks, Johnson Central has an impressive one with 9. Raceland has won 9 in a row in the first round of the playoffs. Lawrence County has won 6 in a row. Let's focus on the Rams for a second. Is their streak in jeopardy at Bishop Brossard, a 9-win team?
Brossard's 9-1. Their district is not overly strong. You got Paris in there, and then some other teams that aren't quite as good. So if Raceland plays like they played against Russell, then you think they have a good shot. If they come out and are looking past Brossard, you would think they would have learned the lesson maybe against a Fairview or a few other teams this year. You cannot look past people and expect to get very far in the playoffs. So, if they come out focused and they play like they can, then Raceland's got to feel pretty good about his chances to get to that second round and back to a Paintsville rematch.
Yeah, and back-to-back state semifinals in the recent past here, last year and the year before. That's going to help those guys because, I know they had some turnover, but there are several guys that have been experienced, have experienced both those seasons.
Yeah, they have a lot of postseason successes that they can lean on here, especially. You can imagine the environment up at Bishop Brossard this weekend. This is their first ever home playoff game in school history, and they just acquired their own personal home field this season. They have shared their home field with various area teams, so now they have their own home field to showcase for a playoff game. So I think that I'm sure they're going to play inspired. I think Raceland still should be able to handle that game pretty well. This is only the second time Raceland has begun the playoffs since 2004. Only the second time they begin the playoffs on the road since 2004. So that's something that doesn't really happen at Raceland very often, starting the playoffs on the road. So we'll see how they handle that.
And they go into an atmosphere at Russell last week knowing Raceland seems to typically play well with that chip on our shoulder, backs against the wall, us against the world thing. Well, going on the road in the first round of the playoffs is certainly that. So if they display that typical mentality that is kind of synonymous with Raceland, then they should be in good shape.
I talked to racing coach Michael Sammons this week, and he said that kind of win kind of got their edge back a little bit. He's seen that in practice this week, so they're willing to go up there and accept that challenge on the road.
I want to mention one more game, and then we'll get to my last question here. Let's go across the river real quick. Ironton at Wheelersburg is going to be a first-round playoff matchup. And that's a game that has some intrigue already because of the rivalry, and it was a 14-6 matchup in week 1 of this season for Ohio. Week 1, it was kind of our second week over here. But Ironton at Wheelersburg, like I said, 14-6 the first time. Wheelersburg's had a nice season. It seems like they have made some strides where Ironton hasn't been really tested in several weeks. So that's going to be an interesting game, too.
Well, that may or may not be accurate. They've been in that OVC, and you would think going into the year that they are going to be head and shoulders above some of those teams because of where they are traditionally. But you play Colgrove, and it's a 14-6 game. Chesapeake's a 21-14 game for Ironton. So, they
Close games, but
Yeah.
I just don't know about the caliber of opponent.
certainly have not played somebody the caliber of Wheelersburg since probably Wheelersburg. They've played Beechwood, Russell, good football teams as well. Ashland, a very good football team. But
Sure, but they were blown out.
Yes, they were. They're a little bit shorthanded too early in the season, some injuries and that sort of thing. They're back to full strength or something resembling full strength, so the kind of big on big, and we'll really see what happens with Wheelersburg Ironton. But it's at Wheelersburg. Wheelersburg blew them out in the playoffs last year, so Ironton will certainly have to be on its A-plus game to be able to go up there and hand the Pirates a loss.
As everyone saw on the ticker, all the other games coming up, of course. Let's pick one out, and I'll let each of you have a chance here. Pick one out that's going to be the closest matchup involving an area team on this weekend. Here's the list right here if you need the cheat sheet. Closest matchup for the first round involving an area team. Who you got, Zach?
I like Granite Harrison. I think Granite
Okay.
has a chance to go up there and win, and that would be, on paper, that would be an upset because it's a 3 over a 2. But the other thing about that district, District 4, not sure which district that is, but the Northern Kentucky and Central Kentucky 4A district, the only team above 500 in that district is Scott. Harrison and Bourbon and Holmes are all either below 500 or way below 500. So, on paper that's an upset, but I think Greenup goes up there. The fact that the way Greenup's offense operates, they're not going to score a whole lot of points most games, so it'll be close, most likely. But I think they have a shot to go up there certainly and take care of business in Cynthiana.
Okay, Matt.
Well, I was going with Greenup and Harrison too,
That's fine.
and that was a very good explanation, Zach. I was going to say that word for her, I think. But I think Raceland and Brosser could be a closer game than what people think.
Good.
With a long bus ride too, I think that has a lot to do with the long bus ride up the AA highway for them. I think that Raceland's more talented than Brossard is, but just going on the road, starting on the playoffs on the road, they're going into their home field. I think it's going to be a little closer than what people might think.
I'm going to say Fleming at Lawrence. Lawrence, as much as they've evolved their offense, with Robert Dalton and Timmy Dalton and Brandon Richardson and the list goes Austin Chaffins. The list goes on for them as far as weapons go. But I still think that Lawrence County is still going to try to establish the run first. And Fleming County's defense is good against the run. And
Just ask Russell.
Yeah, just ask Russell. And when you look at that, the Panthers have kind of, you talked about Russell earlier, or you did, playing with the chip on their shoulder a little bit. I think the Panthers have played that way all season long. Nobody really expected much out of them. Maybe outside of their locker room anyway. I was talking to Coach Spencer the other day, and that's why he referenced that. He was like, nobody thought we'd win more than 3 or 4 games, and that's been on the kids' minds. They made a goal to win 8 games this season. This would be their 8th win if they were to do it. I think it'll be a closer game than what some people think. Lawrence County's going to, I think, prevail, but Lawrence and Fleming could be a close one.
Should.
All right. We'll be back with 2 for the road. I'm going to leave.
We're back on HTPT with Matthew Sparks here in the conference room of the Daily Independent. Time for 2 for the road. Matthew?
It's kind of weird not having Aaron Snyder back on the camera. I think this might be the first time in the show's history that he hasn't been on camera.
So. More airtime for the rest of us.
Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can we go first? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I saw some video over the weekend that is a sure sign that the economy, I think, is still growing. I watched a Memphis Grizzlies basketball game, and a young man made a half-court shot at halftime and won
Yeah.
a humongous prize.
Very nice.
You want to imagine what it was? Tater tots for life. And he was very ecstatic after he made the shot. I didn't know they still existed. I thought they were only in school lunches or something.
I was going to say I've not eaten tater tots since middle school.
You
Probably.
know, I don't know. I'm sure they go. I'm sure they go great with the chicken at Chick-fil-A.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, kind of looking at Jim Harbaugh, Michigan's coach, is kind of good for about one hilarious thing a week, if not several. And or go to the paper for this. He had a press conference this week, kind of revealing his health and medical philosophy, and maybe he should be teaching some freshman health courses or something at the University of Michigan. But he tight end for Michigan had quote a bit of pneumonia, which is different than a lot of pneumonia, I guess. Over the weekend, Jim Harbaugh's prescription was push-ups and whole milk. So that gets out, and people are asking him at his press conference, okay, well, what in the world is that about? This is his quote. I truly believe the number one natural steroid is sleep, and the number two natural steroid is milk, whole milk. 3 would be water, 4 would be steak. Then it goes off. Of course, he kind of has this thing where he uses quotes from a book or a movie or something. A couple weeks ago it was something about if worms had machine guns or whatever. This week it was, I take a vitamin every day. It's called a steak. And I got real excited when I heard that. It's like, that's kind of silly and ridiculous and fantastic. I only discovered that he lifted that from a movie. You don't want to say he's not capable of original thought because he says a bunch of crazy and ridiculous and wonderful things every week, but that was kind of one that jumped out. And so it's a good excuse to take your vitamins is to eat a steak, I suppose. So.
Well, if that's the case, I'm very healthy. You know,
There you go.
I eat
We're in good
steak
shape.
and various other things every day.
Various other things. I like it.
Well, I guess that'll do it for the show.
Yeah.
We're going back on the road next week. We don't know where, so we're going to keep that a mystery right now. HTP is always brought to you by Fan and Automotive Family. For Aaron Snyder, this is Zach Clemmy. I'm Matthew Sparks. We'll see you next week.